Hello friends and welcome to a shot of code. Today we're going to be looking at animation in Aurelia. Now there's a plugin in Aurelia to help us with this, and it allows us to apply animations, transitions, transforms whenever an element is added or removed from the DOM. So we can use this when we're transitioning between navigation pages, or we can just use it when we're showing and hiding items to give a nice transition between them. So let's jump in. I've got Visual Studio Code here with a very simple Aurelia app. It was just created from the Aurelia CLI, and so here's all of our code that it creates, quite a lot, but the important part is just in the source folder here, and we've got our HTML, which is displaying two messages at the moment, a top message and a bottom message that we can see over here. And I've just got a button here that's going to enable us to toggle between them. So for this demo, we're just going to have one of the messages disappearing and one appearing, and then we'll change the opacity so that it's, rather than just flicking in and out, they transition nicely. I mean, if we look at what happens when we click on the button we call toggle at the moment, and that just changes our show a message. Let's take that one off, that our show message parameter there. So to get it working without animation, let's do if.bind equals show message, and if I save that, our top message should disappear because by default it's false. And then we say if.bind equals not show message, and save that one off. Now when I click the toggle button, we should see it go between the two. Show message, maybe a save. We'll save over there. Okay, yeah, so toggling, we've got the top message showing and the bottom message showing. Now to add animation to this, I'm just going to put some style in here to start with, just so that we can have the buttons on top of each, not on top of each other, and positioned so that they don't move. Because at the moment when we hide and show one, it's just they're gonna jump up and down. So let's give this one a class top, and this one here bottom. Okay, so for the top one, we'll say position absolute, top px, and then we'll have very similar for the bottom. And we'll just put that at 100 px. Okay, so now when I toggle, we can see it flipping between them. No animation at all at the moment. Now, first thing we need to do to use the plugin is go into our main.ts from the application, and it's already got it set up for us here. I've uncommented it already, but basically we'll say Aurelia use plugin. Let me just make it a bit bigger so we can see. And we need to add the Aurelia Animator CSS. So if you're using the Aurelia CLI, this is all here for you. You just need to come in and uncomment that. Now, what does that give us? What that does is it now tells the Aurelia framework to start looking for elements that have got the AU animate class on them. And for those elements, when they are added and removed from the DOM, look for some specific classes that define the animation that we want on that element. So the first thing we need to do is say AU animate on both of our elements that we want animated as they are added and removed. This is just a kind of a performance thing. The framework doesn't want to have to check all of the DOM. It just wants to be able to say, right, these ones, and have they been added and removed, and has the correct class got a style for it. So what happens now is when nothing's going to change yet. If we just say here, we're still getting nothing different there. Just make these a bit smaller so we've got some more room. But what will happen is when we remove these messages, it will add and remove a particular class. In fact, we can probably see it here. If I open up the elements here and look down here, we can see, if you keep your eye on this bit here, when I toggle, it's pretty hard to see. Let's try again here. Okay, I don't think it's showing the class because we haven't got one specified yet. So let's add that in first. So what it is going to do, it's going to add the class AU enter active or AU leave active, depending on whether the item's being added to the DOM or not. And we can apply animations to that class. So what I'll say is for a H1 div that's got class AU enter active, I want to specify an animation, and we're just going to do a fade in, and it's going to take 2 seconds. And we want to do similar now for the leave. So this is when it's being made invisible, and we'll do a fade out in that case. Okay, so I'll save that one off. I'll just see if it changes anything in here now. Does it? Can we see it adding those? No, still not at the moment. Okay, what we need to do is define these animations, fade in, fade out. So if we do at keyframes, fade in, and we say at 0%, it will be opacity of 0, and then at 100% it will be opacity 1, and then we'll do a copy of that for fade out, and it will just be the opposite. So we'll go from opacity 1 down to opacity 0. Okay, so I'll save that one off. Right, I think we can see that it's applying that now. So when I click this button now, the bottom message will disappear and the top one will appear, and you can see that it's using this opacity. They're both kicking off at the same time, so it's not staggered one and the other, but as soon as this becomes false, the framework checks for AU animate, and it knows that it has. So then it looks for well, what it does is apply this AU enter active class is essentially added here by the framework, which, I'll just move this so we can see a bit better. Sorry. I'll just close those up. So essentially this class has been added, which means that this style will be applied, and the framework hooks into the animation as well, and so it looks for when the animation finishes, and when it finishes it then removes the item from the DOM. Until your animation is done, it's going to be visible there. So let me just take that off because that would break things. We'll just have a quick look at it again. Now just see if we can see it adding them in here this time. all, because they're being removed, it's hard to see. There you go. So you can see the AU enter there. Let me see if I can bring it up. It is quite quick. Well, if I just make it, let's make it really long, 10 seconds. Then we look at our item here. So it's on that moment. Let me give it a refresh. I think it's still doing the 10-second one. This AU enter, yeah, okay, so they're gone. All right, so right, let's have a look at what it does, because there is another class it adds there as well in case you need. So when I toggle, we can look down here and we can see the AU enter on the top message and the AU leave, and the AU leave active and the AU enter active, and then they're removed. So there's two classes added, in fact. So there's the AU leave active, which is where you put your animation itself, and then there's just AU leave, where you can perform some initial setup if you want, you know, setting the opacity to a certain number. So just something to configure the start of your animation. In this case, don't really need it, but you know, it's there if you need. You've got that extra ability on there. So yeah, there you go. That is using the framework animation in Aurelia. I hope that was useful. If you'd like to see more of these videos, then feel free to click on that subscribe there. And if you're interested in some at the moment, YouTube will probably be showing a pertinent video here. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.